Give me a second. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Perfect.
You're back.
Thank you. We apologize for the crashing of our system. We are back up. We've had nothing go on other than Athletic Director Sylvester finished up his presentation on fall sports, and then the board, while we were waiting to bring it back up on our YouTube channel, we took a short break until we were back up. So you have not missed anything within our school board meeting. It has been decided that we will wait until November 16th to vote on any fall sports, since they're going to be starting later. Winter sports, excuse me. Since they will be starting later, we're just going to wait till November 16th board meeting to make that decision. Fall playoffs will continue as scheduled. There will be no changes to that. So the fall athletes that are participating in playoffs will continue to participate in our playoffs. And good luck to our teams that are in the playoffs.
Okay, next up is a date, as Delaney had said. We're looking for a date for the board and administration to have a special board meeting to talk about the strategic plan and to do a little reboot of the strategic plan. So I'm hoping everybody has calendars available. We're looking for an evening where we can meet. We're thinking about doing this probably in the high school cafeteria so that we'd have plenty of space. Lynn Healy would be there to facilitate our meeting like she typically does. And we're hoping to do this in the next month or two.
Do you have any suggestions for November?
For November dates, I know right now, let's see, we have a board meeting on the 16th already, right? So I don't know if people want to do something later that week. There's nothing else on the calendar that week. The following week is Thanksgiving week, so I'm sure we would want to stay away from that.
Probably not. I'm open any day that week, that week.
Yeah.
Of the 16th.
Of the 16th.
Thursday the 19th might be a good day to do it.
Thursday the 19th. Out there in Zoom land, because we'll need administrators there. Could you all check your calendar for Thursday, November 19th at 6 o'clock at the Franklin High School gym, or cafeteria, excuse me, for a special board meeting on strategic plan, if that would work for everybody? The consensus is right now within the school board is going to work for everybody. Jeff? 6 o'clock?
Yeah.
Deb, will the November 19th work for you, Deb Brown? Deb?
I'm checking right now.
Okay. All right, I got a thumbs up from Rebecca. I got a thumbs up from Robin.
Yeah.
And Carrie.
Carrie's a thumbs up. Jay's a thumbs up. Barbara's a thumbs up.
Yes, for me.
Yes for Deb's, okay. Tim, is it gonna work for you? Tim's a thumbs up. All right, so those that are here, Jefferson, you all set with that day? Jefferson's good. Ken, you said you were good on that day. Ken's good. Susan, Sue, yes? Jewel?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so it'll be the November 19th at 6 p.m. Yeah?
6 p.m. would be perfect.
6 p.m. We'll meet in
High school
the
cafeteria.
high school cafeteria, so we'll be able to do our social distancing.
Super. Thank you, everybody. All right, next up. So I started conversations with the teachers union about snow days and remote learning, and whether or not we would like to consider, instead of having a snow day called, whether we would want it to be a remote learning day, since we're getting really good at those days. And I had some very favorable conversation with the teachers union about it. They had mentioned to me a memorandum of agreement, and I actually reached out to our attorney, Matt Upton, and he agrees that we should seek out a memorandum of agreement on that. They have said that they're very willing to do this, and I think that our attorney and Karen are willing to work together on a memorandum of agreement. So I don't believe there's gonna be much that we would need to do other than perhaps have one negotiating meeting where the negotiating team just takes a look at what they give us. We probably can do it without a meeting. We could probably just do it through email or text with a negotiating team. But if we do get snow before we can get this finalized, they said they were fine with us trying to call a remote day instead of a snow day. They were good with that. The only time I see that we wouldn't call a remote day would be if we had some power outages or significant power outages. You know, and you have to remember it's not just Franklin power outages because we have staff all over the state. So we would have to, you know, I would have to make that decision about whether or not there was significant power outages throughout the state or not, and whether or not it was okay for us to do a remote day. But I think a lot of superintendents are talking about this. A lot of districts are talking about it. I don't really see a downside. This is not, by the way, a blizzard bag. This is very different than a blizzard bag. This is instruction online, live instruction with your teacher. It's not, here's a packet of worksheets, I'll see you in 2 days. The blizzard bag piece, I've never been a supporter of blizzard bags, but this is very different. This is remote learning. This is live instruction, guided through your teacher with Google Classroom. And I think that we should consider doing this. So I'll turn it over to you guys for questions and discussion.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
It's a no-brainer.
I mean, I've supported this anyways with the remote learning. I think it's gonna save on the long run with school days, cause you're not gonna have that extra 5 days anymore. So you're gonna be able to get out of school earlier, so the students can start their summer vacation earlier. And it continues that pattern of learning instead of having that, break there because of a snow day. You're not gonna have that break in your education because you're gonna be remote. So I strongly support it. I mean, we've already seen that it works. We can do it. And I know it has been a pretty hard topic that's been discussed among many school boards throughout the state here about going to this because we're now seeing the success of remote learning. So I support it. Chris?
In principle, I don't support it.
Yep.
Just because I think that in-person instruction is more valuable than remote learning. But in the case of mitigating contact, I think it's perfectly acceptable under the circumstances, so I would support it.
In place of a snow day.
In place.
No, I agree that in person's always, but if we're gonna have a snow day, we know remote can work. So you agree with that point in the
Excuse me.
Hello.
Excuse me. Hi.
Hi.
We're having trouble understanding what people are saying again. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I can see the looks on people's faces as I'm gathering.
Well, Delaney's the farthest person.
Yeah, Chris is the farthest one away.
Chris.
Chris is basically supports it for snow days, but he still feels that in-person, face-to-face education is the best, but he understands and would support it in a snow day sense. Is that right, Chris?
And if I can I speak to that, Chris, too? Because I completely agree with you. There's no question in my mind that in-person learning's better. I think we've learned, all of us have learned that that's the case. But I would ask you to look at the last couple of years, and what we've done is actually waive days. Because our calendar, we've run out of days. So in that particular situation, the kids didn't receive anything. So I think in light of those facts, I think I'm more recommending we do this just because of what we've done the last couple of years is actually given them no instruction. So, in light of that, I think we're better off giving them remote instruction than at the end of the year saying we're gonna waive these days. So, I mean, I think that's where I'm at, but I would 100% agree that in-person instruction, and I think everybody, teachers included, would agree that in-person instruction is better, for sure, so.
Eleni?
Tim?
Oh, go ahead, Deb.
I agree with everything that's being said. The only thing I think that we really have to be concerned with it is to the internet service that may or may not be provided in one area of town versus another area of town to be able to pull it off. And I think that's going to be a tough decision for Dan, not knowing who may have internet and who may not in such a storm type weather related issue. But I do agree with having remote if possible.
All right, thank you, Deb. Delaney?
I like the plan. My follow-up to Deb would be, do you know if Atlantic Broadband has any services to identify outage areas that you
Yeah,
can take advantage of?
and that's what I was gonna say, I'm guessing that there's a number that I could probably call, that they would tell me that. So I would call Atlantic Broadband and say, can you give me a sense of Franklin's, outages and whatnot. And I think that's the next step for me to explore, is if the board's interested in me doing this, then, and I guess the other thing I would say is, we're getting pretty used to making difficult decisions around here, so I'm not worried about that. Snow days used to be the hardest decision we had to make, and now it doesn't look so bad anymore, so.
All right, thank you, Delaney.
No, I support it. I think it's a good idea.
Thank you. Scott?
Yeah, I support it. We're not wasting their time or anyone else's.
All right, thank you, Scott. Jeff?
I'm good.
Jeff's all good? Okay. So, by the consensus stand, that the board feels that remote learning is and snow days seems to be the way, so if you want to continue moving forward with
Yeah.
researching this, and go ahead and bring it forward.
Yeah, we should have, hopefully we'll have an MOA for you to look at in November, with the teachers union, so we'll do that. Okay, next topic is a really hot topic, around the state, and that's the topic of Thanksgiving and Christmas vacations that are coming up. And the concern that people have about getting together with relatives and friends, people traveling, people accepting travelers into their homes, and how we should be thinking about this in terms of keeping everybody safe. So I wanted to bring this to you a month early, so we would have time to consider all this. And this is not a simple issue. I've been thinking quite a bit about this, and I've had some conversations just with Tim about this. We know that we have a situation right now where if somebody travels outside of New England, they have to quarantine for 14 days. And that goes for any citizen in the state of New Hampshire right now. So, one of the things that we're potentially worried about is people not telling us that they're traveling outside of New England because of this requirement. Whether that would be families, whether that would potentially be staff. So we have to consider that. I have passed out a calendar to you to take a look at. Some districts have been talking about going fully remote between Thanksgiving and Christmas vacation. There's about 3.5 weeks of school between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So some districts are thinking, well, if we went fully remote, then that issue goes away. Well, part of me says potentially it goes away, but it's almost giving people permission to go out
And wouldn't you have to go 2 weeks beyond Christmas?
and then well, we haven't even got to that point yet. I'm just dealing with Thanksgiving at this point.
Well, I mean, if you're going Thanksgiving to Christmas, people are gonna travel at Christmas, so you have to add another 2 weeks to that.
Yeah.
So I don't,
Correct. On top of that, if they go during Christmas vacation, now you gotta go 2 weeks beyond that, so now we're going further out.
you know, we're going 2 weeks
So-
before New Year's.
Yep.
Related to this is the fact that the federal government has given us the 80 hours of sick leave, so even if we have staff members say they travel and we don't want them to work remotely, let's say, they have paid sick leave guaranteed by the federal government that covers the 2 weeks that they would be out. Typically, we would probably want them to teach remotely and have somebody in their classroom, because we don't have a lot of coverage in terms of who could teach those kids with the teacher not there. So there's just a lot of issues to think about in terms of how to handle the Thanksgiving and Christmas vacations. I have started to receive inquiries from staff already telling me that they're traveling outside of, or planning on traveling outside of New England for Thanksgiving break. So this is an issue that we're gonna have to deal with. And it's something that we need to think about. Certainly we can't control how our families and students are gonna handle this. But we do have some latitude in terms of how we wanna handle it with our staff. I think that the superintendent will deal with those issues individually. I'm not looking for the board to come in and weigh in on this piece. I'm more looking for you to think about potentially what we might wanna do, if anything, at this point, to handle some of this stuff. And this conversation is gonna continue throughout the state, especially as cases continue to spike at this point, so. I'll leave it at that and let you discuss.
I think we need to rely on the families and students to provide us information, so that they can make a decision, or the school district can make a decision as to whether or not those individuals need to be kept out for quarantine. I think it would be a significant mistake if we close the school down for a month and a half, because we have a fear that people aren't gonna be honest about their travels during the holidays. I think everybody needs to take responsibility, and that, you know, the schools may need to communicate clearly that it's our expectation that you will quarantine your child and they will go fully remote for those 2 weeks should you travel outside of New England. I think it would be extraordinarily unfair to the rest of the student body to not have the opportunity to be live in person with their teachers. You know, because some people are gonna be traveling outside of New England.
Are the parents, are you gonna be sending out a letter and information saying that this would be the possibility of what might happen, or these are gonna be the rules that if you do go out, you have to stay and inform us?
I will definitely be sending out a letter of, like I have been sending letters
Right,
out,
right.
and we'll definitely continue to send letters out. Articulating expectations, articulating what the, you know, DHHS and CDC rules and guidance are, we'll continue to do that. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Deb.
Dan, would it be prudent to send out a anonymous survey to the staff to get a sense of who is traveling and who is not, so that you have more data to work with? And then my second thing is, if someone goes out on the FICRA leave, that's only for a certain number of days, and it's only at what, 2/3 salary? Is that correct, Jefferson?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Deb, he said.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to answer that, Dan, for her, or do you want to address that with Deb, or?
No, well, we can.
No, I don't need an answer.
Oh, okay.
I just made that as a,
Yeah, oh, yeah,
you know, is that a possibility, you know?
A survey is always a possibility. You
Okay.
can survey families too. I mean, if you want data, we can bring data back next month and say, here's what the families are telling us and here's what the staff is telling us. We can do that.
I mean, what are we gonna do with the data? If 30% of families are saying they're gonna travel outside of New England, I know that's a high number, but then those 30% are gonna have to deal with the 14 days. I honestly, I don't care what the percentages or how many families are traveling outside, they just need to stay home.
Yeah.
My point is that I don't want students whose families aren't traveling or, you know, at an additional risk to have to face the consequences for other people's choices. So for me, that data is a moot point, personally.
I would say the data that would be most beneficial to you for planning would be the teachers.
Yeah, day-to-day
Because if they have to
operation.
quarantine, they'll have to, at a minimum, teach remotely.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd be interested in to see what the teachers doing, just so you can adapt your day-to-day operation. I mean, families, I would just ask them to report, you know, as just a heads up.
I was thinking more of just the staff. I wasn't thinking of surveying families.
Okay.
I'm thinking just so that Dan can have the data to be able to plan for the number of teachers that would be remote, the number of teachers that would be in person, if that's the case, or however it plays out.
I mean, I'm fine.
But
with
if you, if you do it anonymously, then you're not putting anybody at, you know, in a spot to say yes or no.
I mean, I'm fine with however Dan wants to gather information. Personally, I don't want to see this discussion turn into micromanaging how Dan is going to gather information and then implement the plan. So I would like to leave that in the SAU office.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's up to Dan to make that decision. If that data is beneficial to him, you know, it's up to you.
Appreciate it.
And I agree with the same fact of what you're saying, Jeff, and what Chris was saying, you know. Parents have to take up the responsibility here. You know, you don't wanna be sanctioning parents and say you can't travel outside to go see your other loved ones, you know, but here's the rules. So we would ask you, if you travel down to Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, whatever the case may be, that you please notify your building principal or the principal of your child and make them aware that you're traveling and you need to quarantine for 14 days, because you're right. I don't want the children that are staying home and not moving anywhere to end up having to also be punished, so to speak. I want them to still be able to come to school or do what it needs to be done. So I've had this discussion with Dan and said the same thing to him. So I agree with what you're saying, that
Yeah, I'm pretty firm on that.
parents need to take responsibility, and Dan can do what he needs to do with your staff.
Honestly, we gotta break it down a little bit.
It's no different than what we're dealing with day to day right now. It's just on a larger scale. That's all it is. So I don't want to overcomplicate the situation by, looking at the volume that may be impacted. If we handle it the same way and people are compliant, the risk level will remain low.
And now you can consider yourselves prepared for these conversations. That was the whole point. Because you're gonna hear a lot about this in the next 4 to 5 weeks here, for sure. So you are prepared. All right, next up, Apogee. We are getting very close to the October 30th launch date. We had some more training today on the emergency call system that we'll be getting, and I am thrilled. I will have the ability now to do an emergency call just to staff. I'll have the ability now to do an emergency call just to one faculty at one school. Right now, our ability is to do one call to the whole staff and families. So just in our emergency notification system improvements, I'm excited about that for sure. But we have been working very diligently, as has the company. And Jewel is going to do a little bit more of a demo now, because we've started to now make the website more of SAU 18 Franklin, so it's starting to take shape here. We wanted to give you a better sense now of what this is potentially gonna look like for us. So we are getting there. Hopefully, hopefully we're getting there.
They're always automatic. I have it on mine, it's just when you're trying to like zoom and, oh, look at that. Well, that was lucky.
Okay, so we can go into back to this.
And then share it.
Yeah, go to here, and up there, you click it up.
Double. Perfect. Thank you.
Go team.
Well done. You're a keeper.
Is there a hostage?
What is that? Is there a hostage?
I don't wanna change my password.
TikTok,
Alright, we'll see if it,
You should just
if
click
I hit
on it.
okay, I don't want it to like make me, okay.
Tim, you may want to announce to the viewing public that really is not something to transfer as well to YouTube, so.
We're going to be watching a demonstration on Apogee, which is a new school website that we're looking to launch in the end of October. It does not come over well over the YouTube channels, so we will do the best we can, but you may not be able to see everything, but there'll be further details in emails coming to the families from the superintendent's office.
Alright, so Thrillshare is actually our home base, that's where we do all of our,
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to see what I can
it's
do.
okay, our updating and all of the work that we do for our different sites. I'm gonna take you to the visit, I'm gonna get rid of them for a little bit, no offense. So when Apogee is activated, this would be the main SAU website page, that if people click on it, this is what they would find. And it has, if you scroll down, there's a gallery, so that floats through, and that can be updated constantly, so it stays fresh and new. You can see who's been playing in here more than anybody else, if you don't see a theme. And there is a live feed section and a news section. And Ken, I thought you did this earlier today when it popped up on your page and it said Franklin Middle School News, and then all of a sudden it popped up on the SAU, Paul Smith, and the high school, so I realized Apogee did it. So we all have this now, because originally when we were playing with it and getting ready, whenever you did a news article, if you did not put your own picture in, this random picture of children we don't know with their hands up just always appeared. And I thought it was always going to be the default picture, but this is the default now, which is kind of nice. It's like our own little news headline bulletin.
And when you edit, you can change that picture also, so you can
Yes.
give a quick picture.
You can, because I did a news article today, which is obviously this news article right here. And here's the really great part, and one of the main reasons that we wanted to go with Apogee, besides the fact that it will also be a mobile app, which is huge because we don't have that kind of transparency and communication skill right now, and we will. But for me personally, the person who constantly has to go here and do an update, go there and do an update, go here and do an update. I did this news article today on the kids being back on the stage after a 9-month hiatus. And I did it on the SAU website page, but when I did it, I automatically linked it to the middle school page, the high school page, and 3 Facebook pages. In one button, it went to all those spots. So I did not have to do the same article, copy and paste, and redo it 7 times. I did it once, and it went to 7 places. And I double checked, and it did go to all those places. You'll see it when I flip to the middle school and high school page. Live feed, anybody who posts in the live feed, that pops up over here, and then all of our stuff just eventually gets archived. You'll see this section here where it says more headlines. Those are just the news articles, and as we add more, they just start getting bumped down there. If there's ever a spot, like for example, this one that I did a couple weeks ago when we first started, then you can just click on it to get the rest of the information, and it all stores there. So the whole letter I sent home to families gets stored there. And then it just becomes a headline, so people would know where to go find it and then just click on it to get everything else that they need. And then there's an event scrolling section at the bottom, so this can get updated at, and I haven't updated it enough to know how many pop up at one time. And then highlighted programs. Took a while to figure out what this is for, but these are literally to highlight certain programs that you have to offer, and that is it. For example, if you click on my program now, the only thing it's going to do is highlight that the program exists, and it provides a link that takes you to wherever I want you to go, which is right now to go buy tickets. So that's the link I have it attached to now. I can change that all the time. I know that the athletic programming is linked currently to Danny's athletic page that's associated with our current website, so that will change. And then I linked this for Barb to the New Hampshire Bureau of Office of School Wellness, but when she gets a chance, she can link it to whatever she wants to, because that was the other program from an SAU level that we decided to kind of highlight. So that's the SAU page. It has all of the other schools right here. So if you wanted to click on Paul Smith, you would go there and Sue's gallery appears. Dan had the option of putting his message at all 3 schools, which he did, so it pops up here, but when it pops up on Sue's page, it's going to say it's Paul Smith News, even though it's the same letter that went on the other pages. Sue's done some live feed updates, and then some events have gone in there, and then the school web pages also have a section for programming, and they also have a section for spotlighting. So once they have things they want to spotlight, they can add that in there. It's not going to appear until they actually add something in there. But I can show you for the middle school. Same thing, there's another gallery of photos that we'll scroll through. I know Ken's put a lot on there. Ken's done a few of his news things because you can see that my newsletter that on the SAU page is at the top has already been bumped down on Ken's because he's done some other news updates since. And the events, and then I actually started adding a ticket link for because he's got middle school kids in the current show so that their families would know where to get tickets as well. And then the last one is, of course, the high school. And I spent a lot of time on this one today to kind of help Carrie get stuff going because she was really busy all day. So we did a lot with her programs. She added the Colby Sawyer. She had added a lot of these already. I just kind of added some pictures and things to kind of finish them out. And then I added the Hewitt Lakes Region LRCC and the robotic highlight for her today. So she has a full program listing, the events, and then the same thing. Dan's message went out, my message went out to all the schools, and then her gallery. The menus are right here. A lot of the documents from our old website transferred over and can be found here now, but Apogee is still in the process of still transferring some. I can show you this one because I did this one obviously. So I linked and created a drama page that goes to all of these. It's on all the websites, and the Apogee showed me today how I can create one page and then I can copy it and I didn't have to redo the page 5 times, which was really nice. But it has all the information so parents could find it, and it even allows me to attach video links, which I figured out how to do today. So I was able to actually archive the kids' video presentations right on that website because I was afraid those were going to get lost, and they did not. So all their videos are archived in there as well. That is it in a very quick overview. I don't know if there's anything else specifically that people want to see. If I can get back to it
Stop
now.
sharing. Right to the top. Oh, stop sharing on the top.
Well, I don't know if I want to stop sharing it. It depends
Oh,
on if
sorry.
they're all set with it or if anybody else wants to. I'm just trying to figure out. Oh, I guess it stopped sharing itself. So I don't know if there's anything else anybody wanted to.
Is this live right now?
No,
It's not. Yeah,
it's not live till.
I noticed the link is broken on the website.
Yeah.
Do you have a roles and rights hierarchy? Have we gotten to that point? Does this even offer that?
The Apogee itself.
We have
Yeah.
tiered system of control,
Yeah.
if that's what you're asking.
Right.
So we
Right.
have super users.
Okay, that's what
We have lower level users and we have
Yeah,
lower
yeah,
level.
Yeah, and if I
Packages,
still had it
yeah.
up, I could show you
Okay.
right where that
But
list
you guys
is.
have thought about how
Oh, yeah.
how you're filling those
How to
roles
tier
and-
it out, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Do you know if it offers like roles and rights usage to show our EHR has like data that shows who uses what functions more often?
It's the same thing as the website we have now. Like I pull a report Robin pulls a report and gives it to me that I share at the monthly communication meetings along with all of the data on the different Facebook pages. And our website now has the same thing that this will have, and it will show us, who's hitting what pages, which school pages are getting hit more. On those pages, what sections are they going to and how often. So yeah, we should be able to pull all that.
Any other questions for Jewel? Like I said, like Dan and Jewel said, there's still some work to be done, a little bit of work to be done, but the hope is by the end of the month, Dan?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're gonna launch, we'll be ready, and then we'll bring everything else online as we get better and better and better at it, so. And I guess what I wanna remind people of is, the beauty of this purchase is that the website will become less and less valuable. It's the mobile app piece that people will be using. So the only people going to the website will be people in the community or in the broader community, because everybody else is gonna fall in love with the app and use the app. And most of or a lot of what you're gonna see on the website, they'll be accessing from the app as well, so just to remember that piece.
All right, anybody have any questions for Dan? So that'll complete our new business on agenda item 5. We'll now move on to agenda item 6, which is our curriculum report. I've been told we can't take another break, so we're gonna have our curriculum report. Did everybody have an opportunity to review your curriculum report? So Jewel, if you just wanna touch on a couple of highlights in it.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I actually even brought a copy of it, but I have it on my computer, so I can pull it up in 2 seconds. Yep, well, the data about the communication piece is right at the top, but my piece focuses more on the Facebook pages. So demonstrated success is one of the biggest things that's going on right now. We did purchase that, which is a whole year's worth of online training that is really focusing and centering around providing services for our staff on how to survive and succeed in an online classroom. They have provided all sorts of training already. They offer us 2 really great webinars a month. They have office hours for staff. So I concluded the list of what they are offering throughout October. And they provided us with a really nice poster that goes in each of the school buildings so staff will know what's coming up. And these are always recorded, so if they're not able to access them when they're shown, they have them archived and they can access them at any time. So we're gonna have a lot of really great PD flowing through for our staff that's really all focused on how to give them what they need in this unique situation that we're in. We also provided them with Teachers Pay Teachers, and I keep updating how much of what is being used on that, just so people have an idea. Our mentoring program, our first meeting is at the end of this month. So I'll be able to next month give a better update on how that's progressing so far, since it's the first time we're using our new program that we approved this summer. I listed a lot of stuff about the upcoming curriculum that we've been providing. We're starting to move Fontes and Pinnell into the early stages of middle school, and we also are looking at moving Zern in, so we have a nice smooth transition from Paul Smith into the middle school, so we've been working a lot on that. And stuff about PSAT and SAT testing, a lot of other of the free PD stuff that I've been finding for people, and some of the NHSAA stuff was listed towards the end. I've joined Simple K-12, which I know is more of they're trying to promote their product and get people to purchase their stuff, but they provide a lot of free webinars in the meantime, and a lot of it focuses on Google Classroom and using Google, so I've been sending that out to staff as well when I get those. And then the last piece, I had the stuff about the kids' production. Obviously, we just took a little bit of a hiatus because when school gets cut down, there's no extracurricular activities. So as I was explaining to someone the other day, we're getting to the point where it's kind of like, you know, the kids have been now off for almost 2 weeks with no rehearsals, and you can't jump in and play a championship playoff state game and expect to win when you have not had any practice. And so it was getting a little nerve-wracking, so we decided to try some Zoom rehearsals this week. Never in a million years did I ever think I would run a rehearsal on a computer, but we did. And I have to say that, is it great? No. But was it better than nothing? Yes. And I had all the kids show up, and I said, be honest, if you think this is a waste of time, let me know and we won't do it. And by the time we finished, they all agreed that it was much better than just trying to rehearse on their own in their bedrooms. So we had a couple of them during the time that we didn't have school, and we're looking forward to being back in person tomorrow. But their show is opening 2 weeks from this Thursday. So I've already started putting up posters, and I had the programs printed. So as far as I'm concerned at this point, that means absolutely nothing can interrupt the next 2 weeks.
Zero.
Yep.
Thank you, Jewel. Is there any questions for Jewel?
I have one.
Go ahead, Deb.
With the budget season going, you know, just around the corner as well, any of the free items that you're getting, that you're using right now for remote learning, are there going to be any additional cost in the budget for next year because they will not be free any longer?
Well, most of what we're using right now, Deb, actually is not free. Teachers Pay Teachers and Discovery Ed were both free last spring, but we actually purchased those to move into this year for our staff. Depending on how well they are used and received and where we move in the future, I'd like to, look at being able to keep them in the budget, but that's why I'm really trying to gather data this year. If they're not being used and it's not worth the investment, then I'm not going to push it. So I'm really trying to stay on top of the data usage for both of those online program tools to see whether we want to continue with them after this year or not.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions for Jewel? All right. Before we go on to our special education report, there's one item, we have our student representative report. It wasn't on the agenda, so I'm just gonna throw it on there now. Colby's been waiting patiently to do the student representative report. So Colby, you still there with us?
Yep, I'm here.
Hey Colby, thank you for being patient and waiting here. I should have put you on long before, but we got talking away with other things. So I'm gonna go ahead at this time where we're on different reports to go ahead and go and give you a student representative report.
Okay. Oh, hello everybody. Hope everyone's doing okay. Unfortunately, school board wasn't able to meet last week, so the amount of information I have is kind of limited. But the main thing that student council is working on is we're working on making a more like almost Zoom friendly homecoming that matches the guidelines better. We did a survey and it seems like small games on Zoom seems to be pretty popular, so we'll have to look into that. Besides that, that's about it.
All right. Thank you, Colby. Any questions for Colby? Thank you, Colby.
All right.
Have a good night. All right, we're gonna move on to agenda item 7, which is our special ed report. Everybody should have received a copy of Rebecca's report. Rebecca, if you just wanna touch on a couple of highlights in your report, please.
Sure. I would say I'll touch on the compensatory education meetings. Those have been ongoing and I find to be really productive. I recently attended a DOE special ed directors. It's a weekly Zoom and they talk about everything hot topic in special ed. They have devised a program on Nessus where you can go on and enter your compensatory education services. That said, you're entering them if you've actually expended a cost. We haven't expended a cost or had to do any additional hiring to meet the needs of the compensatory education service meeting outcomes. So I don't see myself going onto that site to enter that information. What we've done mostly is have students come 4 days per week if they feel they would benefit from that. To date, we've done about, I think, 28 kids, but that includes our life skills and Odell kids, which we actually did right at the onset of the school year. So that's an update on that. We're closing out the last few weeks, and then our meetings, I believe, will be done, and we will have satisfied that requirement. We are doing Panda Doc now, which is a big new thing for special ed. It's been going really well. We're getting documents signed quicker, more efficiently. I can sign everything remotely, which is wonderful. So that's been something new. We do offer all families 3 ways of signing documents. There is a way to do it through Nessus, the online IEP system. We can do mail or we can do Panda Doc. Panda Doc seems to be the most popular choice and one that I'm preferring. I did indicate that our special ed numbers have gone down. So where I believe we were 257 last month, we're at 250 right now. I was actually surprised to see this number because we have so much movement right now. I mean, we're getting requests, we're sending kids. It's been more movement than I've seen in my time here. Again, we haven't lost them. We've lost a couple to homeschooling, but otherwise, I just think it's kind of the nature of the time right now. And I think that's really the biggest highlight. Those are the highlights.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions for Rebecca? All right, thank you, Rebecca.
You're welcome.
All right, agenda item 8. Paul Smith Schools, Sue is with us in the room tonight, so everybody should have seen Sue's report. Okay, Sue, if you just want to touch on a couple of highlights.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. The main purpose behind my report for this month is to just talk about some of the extraordinary things that are happening in light of our unprecedented times. In particular, I want to recognize Robin Dunlap. So we have little technology glitches at Paul Smith School for whatever reason that the other 2 schools don't necessarily have difficulty with. So I want to just talk about her responsiveness and recognize her for really stepping up to the plate to make sure all of my teachers have what they need, whether it's 50-foot Ethernet cords or headphones for our teachers and our kids. She's really worked very, very hard because there is something that happens at Paul Smith School that makes it a little bit more difficult. We're also working with Chromebook repairs and loaners for kids. So, as you know, one of my children's families suffered a fire. She was very responsive in making sure that that young lady got a new Chromebook, and we just kept going without skipping a beat. I also want to focus a little bit on this past weekend. I want to really talk about Cecile Fligg and Diana Miriam. Their dedication to the work that we had to do with regard to contact tracing and the due diligence and time that was put in to this research regarding our students' needs was just unbelievable. I worked side by side with Cecile for most of the 3 days, and I learned so much, and I know Cecile and Diana did too, but the time and energy put into it, I just wanted to recognize them tonight for their hard work, because it was a lot of hard work. I wanted to talk about our shifting population, and Rebecca sort of mentioned it, and you can see it just in my graph at the top for Group A, Group B, and remote, and you can see the shifting numbers. But in particular, I asked Pam, because we did throughout the month of September and October, and we're still doing it, we kept record of our shifting population. So I asked her to just pick a week, and so she picked August 26th to September 1st, which is actually 5 school days. And my note says that Pam received 26 phone calls requesting changes or revisions, and I know the numbers add up to more than that, and the reason for that is because they were either emails or another form of communication to ask us to make a change. But you can see the extraordinary shifting of our population as we move from parents feeling, or were feeling, very comfortable with what we were doing in the district. For me, it was particularly at Paul Smith School, and saying I want to have my kid in school, so please take me off a remote, put my child into hybrid. And now, of course, and the data is in here, you know that we're also suffering the other side of that now, you know, so a little bit of a scare, so it causes parents to react. So we have more parents calling to request that their child go back to remote learning for a period of time. The other thing I just wanted to talk about is a change in practice, and that is, you know, meeting the needs of our kids who are remote. It is really easy to lose a kid in remote learning if you're not keeping track of your data. So between our school counselor, our social worker, myself, and our classroom teachers, we are tracking our kids, and those children who we are not hearing from, our teachers, I have a 3-strike rule, I'm sure you've heard it, you know. Teachers are reaching out to families and students, mainly families because of the age of my children, to say, how can we help, what do you need, you know, what's going on. And then there comes a point where it will be turned over to our school counselor and our social worker, and the next steps are having parents come in. We've had parents come in and walk them through training on how to access Google Classroom or how to log in. And then we've also partnered with Barbara and we've had some home visits. So, you know, it's extending our hand as much as we can to support the families and support the children in remote learning, but then it's also making sure that we hold families responsible for accessing their child's education since they've made the choice to participate in remote learning. It's going very well. I would say to you, we haven't, with the help of Dan, we haven't lost a kid yet. We're on top of them, and as we said to staff today, even if we're not jumping right back and reporting to them, that we ask that they please come back and talk to us, because we will share what we can, but in some cases we can't share information. And a lot of times that has to do with just, you know, privacy of what's going on in a family and not making that public knowledge. So those are some of the shifts in practice that I'm seeing occur this year that are, I would say, significant, but certainly by no means reduce the quality of what we're offering our children and our families this year.
Are there any questions for Sue? Is everybody all set? All right. So we'll move to agenda item 9, which is our middle school administrative report. And we'll turn it over to Ken to give his report. If you just touch on a couple of things, Ken.
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. I do not make these big graphs on the top, so I have to write less. I just want you all to know. But I also don't really require this to have a lot of analysis done to it. I just want you to know that the report that I'm making about our student population trends is data driven. We find out the data on the day that it was pulled, and we go from that. And what I'm pleased to say from looking at this is our population is pretty stable. We're not having a lot of shifts, though I will tell you, yes, we do have kids go A remote, B remote, and back and forth, but in the net result is we are somewhat stable. The other thing is our population trends. Even though it shows that 42 students have unenrolled in our school, our actual population is as expected because we graduated more kids than we had coming in the existing population at the end of the year. So that's the gist of this analysis right here, and it's described through there, though I'm very pleased that our population is strong. We are having an increase in combination A-B kids due to our work with special education to find kids who definitely benefit from 4 days of in-person instruction. So I will tell you that on a given day, you can see on the average, we have under 125 students in our school. We have 18 classrooms with a capacity of 12 each. So our daily capacity at full is 216 students. So we're still, even if we get a little bit of a fluctuation between A's and B kids or an increase that way, we have significant capacity to be able to deal with that. We work in conjunction with the team leaders and special education to take care of those needs. I talked a little bit about how the schedule is going, and I will tell you, I looked at today. We had a 93% attendance rate today on a fully remote day. So we are having our students, and we check them at that's 93%. First period of the day at 7:30 in the morning, we expect them to be out of bed and checking in with the teachers, and if they don't, there's a phone call that goes home. So we're staying up with our kids, and our kids are participating. I'd take 93% on a regular day. We're getting ready to participate in the statewide assessment system. We got pushed back a week because last week would have been a significant preparation week for able to do it. And we want accurate information on that, so we'll likely push that back. The state is going to give us some flexibility when it comes to that. Our staff would rather test well than test fast. So we're going to be working on this for the next few days to be able to get it done, and we may be into the first week or so in November, but we're very confident that we can get it done. And we're, last but not least, celebrating staff and student members of the week, and we're going to continue to do that, hopefully in the next week or so. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Any questions for Ken? All right, thank you, Ken. Okay, agenda item 10 is going to be our high school administrative report with Carrie.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
I can, Carrie.
Okay. So I wanted to echo what Sue had said about our nursing staff and also our buildings and grounds. Very detailed and working collaboratively so we could get information out to families, which Diane and I had a good time trying, not a good time, but a very professional time trying to figure out best ways to communicate. So I'm glad that a parent had reached out on that behalf. I wanted to mention that our SATs got rescheduled. It is on my principal's report per what happened with our pandemic shutdown. So they are scheduled for a little bit later on the 27th of October. Something that I included for you in the principal's report is a captain's contract that was written by Jacob Beaupre. So I just wanted to make note to see if the board members had seen that document. We did not have one in the past, and so I'm very thankful that Jacob worked on that for us as a school so that we could have that for our captains for all of our sports. And I do want to point out that we have a committee that had been started. They met already for scheduling and looking at different ways that we can help all of our students be successful. Mostly trying to keep our kids on track and what needs to happen with our school schedule in the future so that that can be done. So they're looking at some different options. And the one other thing I want to talk about, I am excited. I'm glad that Colby was able to come to our meeting this evening to talk about Homecoming 2020 and what the kids are coming up with for keeping our traditions alive just in a different way. So I'm excited to see what that's going to bring for us in a couple weeks.
Thank you, Carrie. Any questions for Carrie?
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Jay, I don't want to leave you out. Do you have anything you want to add on to Ken's report?
Discipline?
No, I think we're pretty good. It's been pretty quiet and some pretty typical stuff that you'd expect. Some classroom behaviors, but nothing too major yet.
Great.
Knock on wood.
I have to say,
Thanks, Jay.
Jay is an ace at our product called Go Guardian. Go Guardian literally looks at what students are doing, and he's monitoring student activity sometimes as much as 24 hours a day. So we know what our kids are doing and where they're going, and we're verifying that they're actually using their Chromebooks when they're doing it. So Jay's a real ace at Go Guardian.
Nice. Tim, how about yourself? How are things going with you?
So far, so good. Nothing unforeseen. Dealing with teenage, adolescent behaviors.
So your first month's been good?
First month has been rather predictable, thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Tim.
Welcome.
All right. Any question for any administrators? Okay, that'll end that portion. We're now going to go to policy, administration. Thank you very much. Good night. Good seeing all of you.
Thank you.
Guys are good.
All right, agenda item 11. Goodbye. Agenda item 11 is policy. First policies, hopefully everybody's had the opportunity to read them. This is ones that we did first reading with last month, so we're coming back with these policies for second reading and adoption by the board. If the board has no objection, I'm just going to read it by policy and policy letter.
Yes.
It's all written down here what policy it is.
Yes.
Okay, so
Good night, everyone.
thank you, Sue.
The only thing is that one of these, your JLCA-R, I'm assuming it's second reading, if there's nothing next to it.
It goes with JLCA, so it just is
Oh, I
a
see.
sample
Okay.
appendix form, so.
All right, thank you.
All right, so all of these policies are gonna be read by letter only, and it's for second reading and adoption. We're gonna start policy AC, policy DK, policy EBBC, policy EHAC, policy GBGA, policy IHAM, policy JLC, policy JLCA, policy JLCA-R, policy JLCB, policy JLCC, policy JLCF, policy JLCI, policy EBBB, and the last one's going to be policy DGA for second reading and adoption by board.
So I move for those policies that are presented by second reading and adoption.
Okay, motion's been made by Scott Burns to accept those policies for second reading and adoption. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Cecile Cormier. Do we have any discussion? Delaney?
I have an issue with policy JLCC. as a parent, is the head lice policy. Having dealt with kids coming home from school with head lice, I take issue with this policy not requiring contact with the families of the students in the same classroom to notify them of a problem, of the issue going on. Because as a parent, if I know there's an issue going on in a classroom, then I can take preventative measures with my kids to help prevent them from bringing them home as well. But when there's no contact and my kid comes home with them, we call the school to let them know that it's happened, and we've been notified that they're already aware that the problem is in the classroom, but they don't tell anybody because that's the policy. So, but as a school, it's our responsibility to educate the kids, and it's our responsibility to communicate with the community. And I strongly feel that we should be communicating about this issue and not just letting it go in circles.
Okay. Dan, do you want to touch on that a little bit? Policy JLCC, which is your head lice one.
Sure.
Delaney just has some concerns where non-reporting going out was the policy.
Well, we get our recommendations from the NHSBA,
Right.
and then we have our nurses, and the policy, and we actually dealt with this my first or second year. So we deal with a lot of, I guess, fear and a lot of lack of knowledge about head lice and how it should be handled in regards to destigmatizing, I think, the situation and how we handle it within the school when we get a case, and how we communicate or not communicate dependent on the situation. So I think that the nurses follow certainly follow the policy, but they follow the guidance from the American Pediatric Society Association about what to do and what not to do in terms of overreacting. So you don't see some of the things that we used to see back in the day in regards to reporting. You don't see full classes of kids coming down to the nurse's office. You don't see the nurse going into a room and looking at every kid's head. You don't see kids getting sent home like they used to be if they had, let's say, nits. So it's, I guess what I would say to it is we have destigmatized the situation, and we have to deal with a lot of, I guess, old school thinking about how to handle or how to deal with head lice perhaps when we were kids versus how it's handled today. So I didn't hear the beginning of what Delaney was saying because I stepped out to go to the restroom.
So my point was that, I've had my kids come home from school with head lice, right? And then, we deal with it at home with, natural processes,
Sure.
right, yeah, burning our kids' hair off. And we call the school to let them know that, we've had an issue, and we've been told in the past that they were aware that the issue was in the classroom already. But we didn't get any information coming back from the school that there was a problem in the classroom. And as a parent, if we know that there's a problem in the classroom, there are preventative measures that we can take with our kids to help prevent them from receiving transmission. So I would like to see in the policy at least notifying the families in the classroom that there's an issue, and then parents, it's up to their own responsibility to take precautions
I think
pay attention to their own kids.
you have to define what an issue is, though, because if one student just
Well, if I call the school nurse and say my kid came home with head lice, then you know that this kid is in the same classroom with this group of students, and so there's transmission going on in the classroom. And to minimize transmission, you could at least notify the family members in the classroom.
But see, I'm not sure, and I'm not a medical expert, I'll state that publicly, so I would defer to my nurses on this, but my suggestion is that just because we have one case of head lice in a classroom doesn't mean that we should then go notify every kid in that classroom or every parent in that classroom that there's an outbreak. That's kind of the old school way of thinking in terms of how to handle these particular things, so.
Alright, so I'll go back to, as a parent, typically by the time my kid is showing symptoms that I'm recognizing, that I then need to check their head, it's already been several days, and we've been through, a growth cycle, and now it's not that they just came home today and they had one, it's that it's been there for a few days, and now the problem in our household is much larger than it was if I was alert to an ongoing situation and checking my kid's head every day, knowing that there's stuff going on, or spraying their hair with tea tree and keeping them up in ponytails and stuff to help minimize the
I understand.
transmission. The things that I would do if I knew that I should be paying extra attention right now. That's that's my concern.
Yeah, and I understand where you're coming from. I think, there are general things that we would do that we would typically send out to everybody in the school. But it's not as typical these days to send it out to a specific targeted population of kids. It's just not the way that the businesses run this way. It's not happening. I could talk to the nurses about this some more, Delaney, get you maybe some better answers.
Yeah,
regarding that. I just know it's
I've had this conversation 15, 20 times.
Yeah.
So.
And I can say that
I'd like to move the needle, I guess, but.
The nurses, all the J policies that deal with anything that involves the nurse, they've all read these policies and sent them back to policy committee with any recommendations or non-recommendations, or if they felt that the policy was fine, and gave it, gave them. So before they came to the board, even for first reading, they came.
I'm not doubting any professional opinion or sourcing or, it's how it's done. I'm just voicing the concern as a parent, just had to deal with it over and over and over again, and it's really frustrating when I feel like a small amount of communication could greatly lessen an impact.
Sure. I understand where you're coming from. I just know that the things and how it's handled has changed from a medical point of view in terms of, and it's trickled down into schools about how the schools are handling it, and it's different than when we were younger and the way things were handled. It's just not handled that way anymore. And I can talk with my nurses and get some more specific guidance from them, Delaney, at this point, but I wouldn't recommend making any changes at this point. I understand your frustration. I've had the same issue in my own home, with my own kids. But it's not typical anymore where you get a case in a classroom and all of a sudden 20 letters go home to families. It's just not the way it's done anymore, for a lot of reasons, and I would not support that kind of a change at this point, based on my nurse's recommendations.
Is it possible that you talk to the nurse and
No,
say,
no.
no, Joe, wait, let me finish.
No.
To see that if it happens in your classroom, that you're notified?
No, they won't, they can't.
They can't
and
do
they
that
won't,
either?
And like I said, I've talked to, all the nurses and every new nurse while we're at the schools and plenty of different people, and the policy is that they can't communicate anything. And there's nothing, it's just,
So Delaney's bringing it to the right place.
It's essentially a non-issue, and I understand from an educational standpoint and, a personal privacy standpoint, that, we have to educate the kids, and that's great, and from that standpoint, that's, perfectly acceptable. I'm relaying this as from just the personal experience of a parent of having to deal with it repeatedly. And, you know, we had situations, you know, a couple of years so bad that we just, you know, we went into full defense mode for the entire rest of the year. We required our kids to have braids in their hair and have the tea tree spray in their hair every single day just to make sure they didn't keep coming home, because every time they come home and they have the issue, then we have the whole process that we have to go through to eliminate it from the household. So, and we have all girls with long hair in the house.
I'm familiar with that. I have 2 girls as well, so I hear you.
Yeah, so they don't stay in one spot for very long.
I hear you.
So, I don't know, if there could be some kind of thought discussion on some kind of way that there could be communication, because, you know, at this point, when there are outbreaks, where does the information wind up? You know, right where it goes, right? It's on Franklin's Talking, it's on all the Facebook pages, and there's a big to-do hurrah, and people get all worked up. And
But I don't know how you would define an outbreak, because well, people put a lot of things on Franklin's Talking, but that doesn't make it fact.
Well, yeah, it doesn't, but again, it's, you know, if we could think of a reasonable, simple mitigation tactic, I think many families would be appreciative. Doesn't have to be, you know, an outbreak alert or whatever, but some kind of way to share information that.
Code red, code green.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, I'll talk to my nurses.
Yeah, we'll talk to the nurses.
I'll talk to my nurses, definitely.
Is there any other? Yes.
On that topic, what about just adding a statement that says, based on the school nurse's recommendation, other children who are most likely to have had direct head-to-head contact with the assessed child may be checked or screened for head lice. What do you think of that, Dan?
I'd be cautious. I'd be cautious, because then it makes it sound like that if you didn't do it, then you were negligent. And the parent's gonna say, well, you have a policy that says that you do this and you didn't do it. So even though you're using the word may, Deb, I would be very cautious. I wouldn't wanna do that, without checking with the attorney regarding this. I mean, this is one of the most, what's the word, controversial policies that we have. It's been that way for a long time, this policy, so I wouldn't wanna make that kind of a statement without running it by my nurses for sure, and then probably run it by an attorney as well before we added it, so.
Then I recommend we table this policy to the next meeting, so that you can have time to investigate.
What are our, when we identify somebody with head lice, what are our requirements to them? Are they removed from the classroom?
We notify the family.
Well, do we require them to take any steps to remedy the situation before they return to the classroom?
We require them to treat.
We do require them to treat before they can return to a classroom. And if they don't, they cannot return to a classroom.
They don't, but we don't send them home though. If they're comfortable, we let them finish the day. Depends on the comfort level of the student. So it's individualized based on if the student's comfortable or not. And then the family gets notified. The family might say, if they're comfortable, we'll treat them tonight. The family might say, I'll come get them right now so we can deal with it.
If we go that far, and we have those procedures in place, I would support communicating with parents in that classroom that, I mean, it only makes sense. So I would say, I would agree, let's table this and revisit it, and talk to the lawyer and say.
Alright. So Deb, are you making the motion, just so we know, are you making the motion to table policy JLCC?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so second by Delaney. Okay, is there any discussion on tabling policy JLCC? Okay, see no discussion, I need a roll call vote on that.
Jeff Savory,
Yes.
Scott Burns. I'm sorry.
He hasn't said anything.
Oh, okay. That's why I can't hear.
Well, yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Delaney Courier,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
and Chris Nealon.
Yes.
The policy will be tabled. We'll bring it back before the board in the November meeting. Are there any other comments, concerns on any of the other policies that have been read into tonight? There's already been, a motion made, it's been seconded for it. Is there any other discussion? Okay, seeing no other discussion, we'll take a roll call vote on the remaining policies.
Jeff Savory,
Yes.
Scott Burns,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Delaney Courier,
Yes.
Chris Nealon,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Deb Brown.
Yes.
Those policies pass unanimously. Next one is gonna be policy GBAA, which is a sexual harassment of employee staff. We need to withdraw that policy. It is now replaced by policy ACAC, which we just accepted, so I'll need a motion to withdraw that policy. So moved by Scott Burns, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Deb. Any discussion? No discussion, I'll take a roll call vote.
Jeff Savory,
Yes.
Scott Burns,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Delaney Courier,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Chris Nealon,
Yes.
Deb Brown.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Next is policy JBAA, sexual harassment and sexual violence student. We need to withdraw that policy that now falls under policy ACAC, Title IV, sexual harassment policy and grievance process that had a second reading and adoption by the board, so I need to have that policy withdrawn.
So moved.
So moved by Scott, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by
Second.
Delaney. Do we have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll need a roll call vote.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Chris Nealon,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Delaney Courier,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Scott Burns,
Yes.
Jeff Savory,
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, that policy is withdrawn. Next are our first reading policies. Again, I will read policy and letter only. Policy, first one is policy EBCB, or EBCG, excuse me. Policy JLCD. Policy JLCD-R. Policy JLCG. Policy JA. For first reading. Policy JHC. Those policies are for first reading only. I'll need a motion to accept it for first reading.
So moved.
So moved by Scott Burns. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Cecile. Is there any discussion? I need a roll call vote, please.
Jeff Savory,
Yes.
Scott Burns,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Delaney Courier,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Chris Nealon,
Yes.
Deb Brown.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, a couple more to get through here. First one is policy JB, which is your equal educational opportunities. This policy has been replaced by ACE, which the board has already accepted, and I need this policy withdrawn, so I need a motion on that.
So moved.
So moved by Scott, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Delaney, do I have discussion? Seeing no discussion, roll call vote.
Jeff Savory,
Yes.
Scott Burns,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Delaney Currier,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Chris Nealon,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously. Next one is policy JBA, procedural safeguards, non-discrimination on the basis of handicap or disability. We need to withdraw this policy as it's now gonna be replaced by ACE, which the board has already accepted. So I need a motion to withdraw it. Scott, you said so moved. Scott, so moved, second by Chris. Second by Chris. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we'll take a roll call vote.
Jeff Savory,
Yes.
Scott Burns,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Delaney Currier,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes?
Chris Nealon,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Policy is withdrawn. Next is policy JECAA. This is admission of post-secondary students. This is an obsolete policy that we should not have in our policies, because we do not offer post-secondary student education. They go on to college. For whatever reason, we found this in our policy, so I need to have this policy withdrawn.
So moved.
So moved by Scott Burns.
Second.
Second by
Second.
Delaney. Do I have any discussion? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call vote.
Jeff Savory,
Yes.
Scott Burns,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Delaney Currier,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Chris Nealon,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
That motion passes, policy is withdrawn. The last policy of the evening that we need to withdraw on. That is policy JFA-R, Technical Assistance Advisory. That is now replaced with ACAC, which is the policy we adopted tonight, which is again, ACAC is your Title IV sexual harassment policy and grievance process, which we have a second reading and adopted by the school board on this evening, so I'll need that, this policy withdrawn.
So moved.
So moved by Scott Burns, so I have a second.
Second.
Second by Deb. Do we have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, another roll call vote, please.
Jeff Savory,
Yes.
Scott Burns,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Delaney Currier,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Chris Nealon,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
That policy unanimously is withdrawn. That is the end of our policies. We will now go to agenda item, which should be 12, which is late items or other. Superintendent, do we have any late items or anything other to bring before the board?
No late items, no other.
Okay. Agenda item 13 is public participation. Do we still have the public person with us? I do not see him. So she must have her questions answered with the sports of what we made for decision. There is nobody, Kathy, for public in the library, so we will not be having a second public participation unless Superintendent Legale has any emails, and he does not. So we will close that portion, which brings us to agenda item 14, and I will take a motion to adjourn. So moved by
Second.
Delaney, second by Cecile, and one last roll call vote there, Kathy.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Chris Nealon,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Delaney Currier,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Scott Burns,
Yes.
Jeff Savory.
Yes.
At
I wanna thank my one life,
8:55 is most meetings adjourned.
one life and seven standouts. Thank you for joining us.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
One of them is my husband's.
Wait and see what's on your.
Night.